All right. Next episode. It's been a few weeks since I've done a video. I've been sick. Uh, Actually thought I had COVID, but that is not what I had. So, anyways, it ended up putting me kind of out of commission for about 2 weeks. So, I've fallen pretty far behind, but um, while I was a little sick, I was able to come out and actually work on the software because, as you could see, I did get the new ECM TCM. So I installed it and started kind of messing with the software. Um, I'm still getting some security errors that I'm trying to work through with the harness company. So not fully there yet, but I did kind of make a mistake, and I had the intake manifold just kind of sitting on there. Wasn't screwed down or anything, and decided to, during the programming and stuff, I had accidentally turned the key a little bit too far forward, and the engine actually cranked up and it started, which was a little kind of shocking to me. I hurried up and turned it off because since the intake manifold was not fully attached there, it was basically trying to go full throttle because there was really no throttle body there. The air was basically being pulled into the heads. And yeah, but it was only running for, God, probably less than a second, because as soon as it cranked, it was pretty god-awful loud considering it's open headers currently. So hurried up and turned it off. But it sounded good. I mean, there's oil in it, so I'm not worried about that. It didn't rev high enough for a long enough time that I'm worried about anything else. Another kind of thing is when I started it, so I don't have the radiator and transmission stuff back on, but as you can see, I had this bagged to kind of protect anything from getting inside these lines while I had them disconnected. And while it was started for that brief second or two, it ended up shooting a bunch of transmission fluid out. So that was quite the ordeal, but it was nice that it actually started. But kind of my plan this weekend, today's Saturday currently, is to basically reassemble everything back to how I had it a few videos ago. So I believe I covered last video that I was working on some clearance issues over in this area. If you remember, I had the steering shaft was very close to the manifold. I installed these Hooker Blackhearts. I've got my AC fittings. So this is a manifold for an I believe this is actually an LS swap manifold. This one here is for an LT swap. As you can see, this one would have directed the lines backwards, and the LS one directed the lines forward, because we have a big and a small fitting. The issue with going this way is this thing goes so high, because I think on different LT AC compressors, there's some stuff in the back that this goes up high enough to clear. But my issue was with this installed, I ended up being really close to the upper control arm mounting right there. So the LS one works. I did have to bend kind of this sensor up a little, but it's not touching either one of these fittings. So I ended up buying, as you could see, a 180. That's a number 10, because that's what the outlet of the manifold is. And then the smaller fitting is a 45. That's a number 8. The number 8 hose You really can't see because I've heat wrapped it. So let's address the front one first. So the front one, I did a 8. I had to buy this T-fitting so that I could put the pressure sensor. That is a standard GM pressure sensor, so nothing fancy, nothing different. And this is the plug for it from the harness, which will plug in if I can get it to line up. Yeah, so that will plug in there. Then it goes back into another 8, and then this is the stock fitting from the Colorado. I bought number 8 ferrules, cut this off of the stock line, and re-crimped it with the new hose, new ferrule, and this will end up running like this onto that line. I've kind of twisted it around here. That way I could get this T into a straight section. And with the way this kind of will sit, it clears the radiator and everything. I've already tested it. Now I've got it reassembled. As you can see, I kind of bought a lot of different fittings and ferrules just to kind of make sure I was going to be good. The bigger line, so you can kind of see, I heat wrapped the whole thing, but underneath this heat wrap, there's actually a 10 to 12 straight fitting. When I pulled this fitting off of the factory line, this ended up being too big. This fitting down here where the ferrule's crimped is actually a 12. So I had to get that adapter, and then there's a 12 hose that goes into one side, 10 into the other, which the 10 goes into the 180. And I've just got done mounting all that and tightened everything up. So everything's tightened. As you can see, I got a pretty good amount of clearance. It's kind of hard to tell, but the 45 actually pushes this in front of where the upper control arm mounts. So plenty of clearance there. This is a little tight up in here, but plenty of clearance. It's heat wrapped, so I'll just be double checking that as we kind of do our test runs after I get everything assembled and we're driving this thing. But it's definitely a lot more clearance than I had before. Pretty clean setup. I'm pretty happy with it. Crimping some of these was kind of a little bit of a pain, but everything seems like it's going to hold. I'm going to run a pressure test once I get the radiator and the AC condenser back in, hoping to do that tomorrow. Under here, so I've got this rag set up because this line here was leaking. So when I reassembled this motor after doing the cam swap, they tell you that you should replace this S line and that line because they're supposed to be a one-time use. Well, the part numbers that I found, this line was not correct. It was actually a tad bit too long. I have no idea because the part number is actually listed for this engine. But doing some more research, there's actually 2 part numbers for this line. For some reason, one of them is different than the other, and it's based on your transmission. The 6-speed lists a different part number than the 8-speed. I'm not entirely sure why, because that shouldn't affect the engine. I mean, none of this is even associated with the transmission, so I'm not really sure why that's different. The line here maybe routes different back to the transmission. I mean, I'm sorry, this line routes over the top of the transmission and goes back to the actual fuel pump of the truck. I don't know if, I never looked this part up, but maybe that's different. So maybe something's different in here. I'm not entirely sure. But anyways, I found another part number. This is the new line. I've got a rag under there because I keep cycling the fuel pump. I get power to it because when I cycled the fuel pump with the old line, it was dripping out both ends of the fitting when I reused the old one. So this is a new one. I've cycled it about 3 times now. The rag's going to catch my drips in case it does drip. I may end up putting the intake manifold, mounting it, starting it, let it idle for a second, take the intake manifold back off, and then double check if I've got any fuel leaks onto the shop towel so I can do whatever repairs I need to do there. If it's good, I'll pull the rag out, and I bought a new isolator that goes right there because the old one got completely saturated with fuel. I've tried cleaning it, but just to be safe, I'd rather just replace it so I don't have any fuel fumes or anything that could potentially cause a fire later on. I'd rather just throw a new one on. I think they're like $18. It's not that big of a deal. It's sitting in the house, so that's all good. So yeah, everything up to this point I think is pretty good. I'm going to make another video tomorrow because I'm hoping to have basically all this back on. I'll put the intake manifold back on without the insulator, mount the intake, and then once I have all that and I have the transmission lines hooked back up, I'm going to go ahead and do a start so I can get at least a video of it starting. I didn't have a video the last time because, like I said, I was not expecting it to start. But we'll get a start for the next video, so hopefully that'll be tomorrow. And then at least get an idle before we build an exhaust for this thing. But yeah, once I get that, then we'll start buttoning up. I could double check the fuel thing, hook that up, put the insulator back on, remount the intake manifold, and then next weekend we'll be building an exhaust. And I'll kind of show my plan for that. I'm also going to replace the transmission line. I think I've shown that in a previous video where the hard line has a leak at my AN fitting. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out and I'll fix that as well. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next weekend, right before I build the exhaust. But yeah, we're on our way. I think next weekend, hopefully I can get the exhaust completed. I've got all the parts. I'm planning on running a 14-inch, 4-inch oval MagnaFlow muffler. I've got a set of high-flow cats I'll be installing. So my plan is to basically weld the exhaust, or I'm sorry, tack the exhaust to kind of get it routed how I want it. I'll be running V-bands in a couple locations so that I could take it apart and pull it off easily. Once we get that, finish weld it up, figure out O2 locations. I am running a wideband on this so I can tune it. I've worked with my tuner. I've selected the wideband that he recommended. I've got it already. All the parts are here. It's just a matter of getting the exhaust laid out, figuring out where the O2s are going to be located, cut the holes for those, weld in the bungs, and then basically mount everything up for that. And then we're pretty much done with the swap at that point. I will do videos showing kind of the diff rebuilds. That'll be my plan for after the exhaust. I may drive it around a little bit. I will change the fluid in the front diff, drive it around a little bit just to kind of make sure everything with the swap's good, make sure there's no leaks. And then I will disassemble the front, pull out the front diff. We'll re-gear that, rebuild it, do the rear at the same time. I'm hoping that'll be just a weekend project to do both of them. And then we'll switch out the leafs for the Devers, throw on the brakes at the same time that we're kind of putting the diffs back together, throw on the sliders, and we'll begin tuning. Working with a tuner, we'll be doing remote tuning, so that'll kind of be probably a pretty good couple week process, because I'll be kind of doing some mild pulls while I break in the gears, and then once the gears are broken, then we'll start doing some better pulls. Also, in the middle of all that, I'll likely have to send the TCM in to HP Tuners to get unlocked, so that we can tune shift points, etc. Once we get into the tuning. During all this too, like during the week, I can mess with the software aspect of it, because that doesn't really require me to kind of get dirty under this thing and take a lot of time doing stuff. So that's something that I can kind of mess with during the week. So hopefully we can get the few errors that I still have with the VAT system, and getting the ECM to be happy with the BCM. Currently there's quite a bit of security codes, and it's not doing the full relearn correctly, but we'll get it. It's probably just something with the sequencing, or maybe because I have so much stuff taken apart still, it's not allowing it. So I'll keep at it and keep you guys updated. But I figured, even though wish I was a little bit farther for this video, but once again, I was sick. I know I haven't put one up in a couple weeks, so I didn't want to leave people hanging. But expect at least running video probably tomorrow. Oh yeah, also I got my battery, so that's installed. I got the Optima yellow top. That's good in there. But yeah, so like I always say, if anybody's got any questions, shoot them down in the comments, and I'll either answer them in the comments or in another video. But that's where we stand. Give you guys an update. Look out for that video tomorrow. And see you guys on the next one.